The hooked hand. The chilling wind howled through the dense forest as Lily and her friends drove down the narrow, winding road. The sun had dipped below the horizon hours ago, leaving them at the mercy of the moonlight and their flickering headlights. They were on their way to a camping trip, a chance to disconnect from the city and reconnect with nature. But tonight, nature seemed ominous, alive in a way that prickled the back of their necks. The trees pressed in close, their skeletal branches clawing at the sky, and the gravel under their tires crunched like bones. There was an eerie stillness outside, broken only by the occasional call of an owl or the rustling of unseen creatures. "Did you hear the story about the hooked hand?" Jake asked suddenly, his voice cutting through the uneasy silence like a knife. "Don't," Lily snapped, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "We're already creeped out enough without your dumb urban legends." "It's not just a legend," Jake insisted, leaning forward from the back seat with a wicked grin. "This very road, this forest, used to be his hunting ground. They say he only goes after people who don't belong here." Mia, sitting in the passenger seat, turned to look at him. "Don't belong? What's that supposed to mean?" Jake shrugged, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Outsiders. People who wandered in but shouldn't have. The story goes that back in the 1940s, he was a racist old hermit who lived deep in these woods. He hated anyone who wasn't like him, different skin, different culture, different anything. He was twisted, filled with hate. One day, he caught a young couple walking through the forest, one black, one white. They were just hiking, minding their own business. But he saw them as a threat, as a stain on his perfect little world." Lily rolled her eyes. "Let me guess. He killed them." "Oh, he tried," Jake said, his voice dropping to a whisper. But the man fought back. He managed to cut off the hermit's hand with his own knife. The couple escaped, but the hermit bled to death. Or so everyone thought. Mia folded her arms. What happened next? Jake leaned closer, his face lit by the eerie green glow of the dashboard. "People say he never really died. His hatred was so strong that it kept him alive, twisted and undead. And now, he roams the woods with a rusty hook where his hand used to be. He's looking for people who don't belong." "That's ridiculous," Lily said, though her voice wavered. "It's just a stupid ghost story." Jake grinned wider. "Is it? They say if you're driving down this road and hear a scraping sound, it means he's near. The sound of his hook, dragging against the ground." "Shut up, Jake," Lily said, her eyes flicking nervously to the rearview mirror. "You're going to scare Mia." "I'm fine," Mia said quickly, though her voice was tight. "It's just a story." But the atmosphere in the car was heavier now, the shadows deeper. The forest seemed closer, its branches leaning in as though listening. Then, just as they rounded a bend, the car's engine sputtered and died. "Oh, come on," Lily groaned, slamming the steering wheel. The headlights dimmed, plunging them into near darkness. "Great," Jake said, peering out the window. "This is how it starts. The part where the car breaks down." "Cut it out, Jake," Mia snapped. "This isn't funny." Lily tried the ignition again, but it wouldn't turn over. "We're in the middle of nowhere," she muttered. "No signal, no lights. This is not how I wanted this trip to go." A sudden metallic scraping noise cut through the silence, making them all freeze. It came from behind the car, slow, deliberate, like something dragging along the road. "Tell me that's not what I think it is," Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Jake's grin faltered. "It's probably, I don't know, an animal, or the wind." The scraping grew louder, closer. "Jake," Lily hissed, "if this is a prank." "It's not," he said, his face pale. "I swear it's not." Mia turned to look out the back window, her breath fogging up the glass. "I don't see anything," she whispered. But then her eyes widened, and she let out a strangled scream. In the faint moonlight, a figure was emerging from the trees. It was tall and gaunt, its face obscured by shadow. One arm dangled at its side, but the other gleamed in the light. An old, rusted hook, caked with something dark and dried. Lily locked the doors with shaking hands, her heart pounding. "What do we do?" she hissed. The figure moved closer, the scraping sound louder now as the hook dragged against the gravel. It stopped just behind the car, motionless, watching. Then, it began to tap on the rear window, slow, deliberate taps that echoed like gunshots in the stillness. Tap, tap, tap. "Drive," Jake shouted. "Get us out of here. I'm trying." Lily cried, twisting the key again and again. The engine sputtered, coughed, and finally roared to life. Without looking back, she slammed her foot on the gas and the car lurched forward. But as they sped down the road, the sound of the hook didn't fade. It followed them, a relentless scraping that seemed to come from everywhere at once. And in the rear-view mirror, Lily could still see the figure, running now, impossibly fast, its hook raised high. "He's not real," Jake yelled, his voice cracking. "He can't be real." But the blood-curdling truth was right there behind them. This wasn't just a story. They had wandered into his woods. The car raced down the narrow road, bouncing and screeching over the uneven gravel. Lily's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, her breath ragged as she kept glancing at the rearview mirror. The figure was still there, running faster than any human should be able to, the gleaming hook glinting in the moonlight. "Lily, faster," Jake shouted, gripping the back of Mia's seat as if it would save him. "I'm already going as fast as I can," she snapped, tears welling in her eyes. Mia was frozen, staring out the back window. "He's getting closer," she whimpered. "How is he still?" Suddenly, the scraping sound stopped. The hook-wielding figure vanished into the darkness behind them. The silence was deafening. "Did we lose him?" Jake whispered, barely able to believe it. Lily slowed down slightly, her trembling hands struggling to keep the car steady. "I don't know," she said, her voice cracking. "Maybe." A loud clang erupted from the roof of the car, cutting her off. It was followed by a horrible, metallic screech, as if the hook was being dragged across the top. Everyone screamed. "He's on the roof!" Jake yelled, scrambling to unbuckle his seatbelt. "Stay in the car!" Lily shouted back, slamming her foot on the gas again. The car swerved wildly as she tried to shake off whatever was above them. The screeching continued, relentless and piercing, until suddenly it stopped. The car shot out of the forest, the dense trees giving way to open road and the faint glow of distant streetlights. Lily didn't stop until they reached the next town, pulling into the parking lot of a rundown diner. She threw the car in the park and jumped out, gasping for air. Mia and Jake followed, their faces pale and slick with sweat. They stared at the car's roof. Long, deep gouges marred the paint, the unmistakable signature of a hook. That wasn't real," Jake stammered, backing away from the car. "It couldn't have been." Mia hugged herself tightly, shaking her head. "We all saw him, Jake. We all heard him." Lily leaned against the car, trying to steady her breathing. "I don't care what it was. It's over now. We're out of those woods, and we're not going back." But as they stood there, trying to convince themselves they were safe, something caught Mia's eye. She pointed, her face draining of all color. "Look." They turned and saw it, scratched into the car's back window, jagged and uneven as if carved by a trembling hand. "You don't belong." Before they could react, a loud clang echoed in the distance, followed by the faint, familiar scrape of metal on gravel. It was coming from the direction of the forest, and it was getting closer.